Hey, what's going on, guys? Mush back at it with another video. Quick video here for you guys today. The Doom Eternal system requirements have been revised. Initially, there were some system requirements that got posted and got pulled really quickly, and some people were getting worried, myself included, that the game was going to be a lot harder to run than initially expected. I mean, the game is still releasing on the same generational platforms as the 2016 Doom. However, the system requirements for Doom Eternal at the time were exponentially higher. Thankfully, that has been revised ahead of the release this Friday. So yes, Doom Eternal's release is coming right up, and if you guys are, at home, whatever the case may be, Doom Eternal is going to be one of those games that you can pop in, forget about all of the ongoings in the world, and really get invested into this game, because this game is looking ridiculously awesome. I cannot wait for it, especially after loving Doom 2016. Doom Eternal looks like a step above from that. So I do want to go over the system requirements with you guys real quick. For the minimum system requirements, CPU, you're looking at an Intel Core i5 3.3 GHz or better, or an AMD Ryzen 3 3.1 GHz or better. That's acceptable. I mean, there's nothing crazy about that. At this point, I think everybody should be having an i5. Or a Ryzen 3. A Ryzen 3 being minimum is also pretty acceptable. Minimum RAM requirement is 8 gigabytes of RAM, so again, this is something that if you're building a PC or you built a PC in the last 3 to 4 years, you probably have at least 8 gigabytes of RAM. 4 gigabytes really went to the wayside, so 8 gigabytes of RAM right now, that is very good. Minimum GPU requirement. Okay, so they completely did a change on this. Nvidia Geforce Gtx 1050 Ti, which is super acceptable. 1050 Ti isn't anything crazy. GTX 1063 gigabyte, GTX 1650 4GB, or an AMD R9 280 or an R9 294 gigabyte. The 280 is a 3GB, or a 470 4GB. All of those GPUs are a little bit older, so very acceptable as minimum requirements. And it does note that is for 1080p 60 FPS low quality settings, so that is a little bit of a bummer, but let's be real, it's a 1050 Ti. It's not like that's a groundbreaking GPU or anything like that. And honestly speaking, I have a feeling that if you play this game with a 1050 Ti, you might get away with playing the game at like medium at 1080p and still getting pretty good frame rates. I'm pretty confident that that would be the case, even maybe with a 3GB 1060. The 3GB 1060, it's just the fact that it's 3GB might be a limiting factor. But I don't see that GPU struggling to run a game like this at 1080p low settings at 60 FPS. Obviously, that's what's being recommended at minimum requirements, but I have a feeling with a 1060 you'll be able to run it on medium. That's just my interpretation of it. For recommended, let's look at this. The CPU requirement is still relatively high. You're looking at an Intel Core i7 6700K or better, or an AMD Ryzen 7 1800X or better. What I've noticed about minimum and recommended CPU requirements, if you have like the minimum CPU requirement, but then let's say you have the recommended GPU requirement, that'll usually end up you having a very, very good experience with the game. So if you're rocking an i5 or maybe even a Ryzen 5, I really wouldn't be all too worried about that. A Ryzen 5 would be fantastic for a game like this. And if you have an i5 that's, let's say, even overclocked, it's going to do really well, especially if you meet the recommended GPU threshold, which there is one thing strange about that, which I'll get to in just a second. Recommended RAM requirement, 8 gigabytes here as well, so none of that 12 gigabyte or 16 gigabyte tomfoolery here with Doom Eternal. I think 12 and 16 is going to become something that's more and more of a recommendation with a lot of games, but I feel like I've been saying that for like 16 months, and games like Doom Eternal still getting by on 8 gigabytes being recommended, so that's cool to see. Okay, so the recommended GPU requirement, this is why I think this is a little bit funky. Nvidia Geforce GTX 1066 gigabyte is one of the recommended GPUs, so on the minimum side of things, you also have a 1063 gigabyte being minimum, so either that 3 gigabyte is going to be very, very detrimental to a game's performance, but even then, 3 versus 6 gigabytes shouldn't be the quality difference of 60 FPS high quality settings versus 60 FPS low quality settings, so that is something to note. Nvidia Geforce GTX 970 4 gigabyte is there, and then AMD RX 480 8 gigabyte is also there. It does note on the Nvidia GTX 970, texture quality should be set to medium, and we all remember the 970, it's a 4 gigabyte GPU already, but then the 3.5 gigabyte debacle that happened all those years ago. That does make sense. So this is a game that probably is going to be, it's going to be very advantageous if you do have north of 4 gigabytes of VRAM. But however, I don't think, like, it just doesn't make sense to me that the 1066 gigabyte is recommended, and that will let you push the game at high quality settings, and then the 3 gigabyte 1060 is going to let you play the game at low quality settings. That's just a little bit of an inconsistency that I noticed right away. And you would think that a 1063 gigabyte, yes, it is going to have its limitations with 3 gigabytes of VRAM, but it still should do relatively relatively well if you adjust some of the settings. Like it notes for the 970, texture quality adjusted to medium, you still should be able to play the game at a higher than low quality setting. So I wouldn't be too attached to that if you're looking at the minimum requirements and you're being like, man, I have a 1060, 3GB, and I'm only going to be able to play this game at low. I really do think you're going to be able to play the game at better settings. Maybe they're just covering themselves with that and being a little bit more conservative on what they say for the additional notes as far as what settings you're going to be playing the game on. And again, for the additional notes on the recommended settings, 1080p 60 FPS, that's high quality settings with the recommended hardware, and then an Nvidia GTX 970, and texture quality should be set to medium on that. System requirements, I think, here are relatively acceptable. I think they're pretty easy to run, all things considered, and it's actually in line with a Doom 2016. A lot of the requirements there, just to quickly go over that, recommended for Doom 2016 was an i7-3770 or an FX 8350, so kind of comparable to what we're getting recommended here. Recommended 8GB of RAM. 8GB was also the minimum, so very direct correlation there. Recommended GPU is very, very identical. You have an Nvidia GTX 970 or an R9 290. Now, the 970 here is recommended. The 290 is actually a minimum for Doom Eternal, so figure that one out. Doesn't seem to make a lot of logical sense there, so some inconsistency issues there as well, but I don't think that's a deal breaker either. Again, I think if you have an R9 290, if you have a 1060, I think you're going to be able to play this game better than what they're noting it to be at low quality 60 FPS, but we'll ultimately see how that turns out when the game actually releases. I don't think this game is going to be too difficult to run. A lot of the system requirements, again, is a direct correlation with Doom 2016, and that game was a fabulous PC port, and I highly expect that Doom Eternal is going to be a very, very good PC port as well. So as far as running this game, I wouldn't be worrying about it all too much, even if you have something that is closer to the minimum requirements rather than recommended. I do think you're going to be able to run this game rather well, unless you're looking to play the game, you know, a 4K, high setting, 60 FPS. Alright, then you're probably going to need some nice hardware, but other than that, I think for everyone involved, if you're playing the game at 1080p, it's going to be a relatively easy game to run. Can't wait for the title. It does come out this Friday, March 20th, so very excited for that. You know, I'm always of the mindset not a lot of games are worth $59.99, or, you know, if you go on Green Man Gaming or some of the other e-tailers, I'm sure they have it a little bit cheaper, but you get the idea. Full price is a very hard sell for a lot of games, but I think for a lot of you guys, you're very excited for this game, and you will be picking it up at full price or damn near close to it after picking it up from an e-tailer. That's going to conclude this video, guys. If you have a request for a future video, you can leave that in the comment section down below, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out. Hey, what's going on, guys? Mush here again. Hope you enjoyed the video. As you guys might know, YouTube's notification system is sometimes a little bit wonky, even if you're subscribed to the channel. Maybe you're not abundantly aware that I uploaded a video. To remedy that situation, make sure you hit the bell notification button. This way, whenever I upload a new video, and I try to upload as consistently as possible, you will be notified directly of the upload, and you can watch it as soon as it goes live. I would really appreciate if you guys hit that button so you can stay up to date with all of the content I'm posting. But as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.